We are live. We're ready to go.
Very good. Good evening, Crestwell. This is Mayor Zettervall, and I'm calling the meeting to order for July 27, 2020, virtual work session, City Council work session for July 27. So my first act on this meeting will be to call the roll. Councilor Castillo.
Councilor Castillo here.
Okay. Councilor Drago has been excused for the evening. Councilor Inman.
Councilor Inman here.
Councilor Knudsen.
Councilor Knudsen here.
Councilor Prochu.
Councilor Prochu here.
Councilor McReynolds.
Councilor McReynolds here.
And Mayor Zettervall is present, so that gives us 6 present for this evening. Next item on our agenda is item number 1, which is the mayor's report. And I would like to first off welcome the city staff and the city council and those attending and watching online to the Crestwell work session to be our first one since February 24th of this year. We obviously had to cancel the work session of March 23rd and the ones following as a result of the Governor Brown's March 8th statewide state of emergency due to the serious health risk from the COVID pandemic virus. The City Council adopted Resolution 20-05, Emergency City Council at Emergency City Council meeting on March 23rd in lieu, which gave the opportunity for us to go back to just one meeting a month, which we followed the city charter in doing so. Since that state of emergency was declared, the requirements, forced us to make a lot of accommodations, which, as you are seeing or hearing now online, is our telephonic meetings. So we are continuing on, we're grasping our technology as best we can, and we are all in a learning curve, we're doing our best. So as we all grapple with the new kind of life that we are facing, and none of us are used to, I would like to remind and encourage people to please follow the governor's guidelines in regards to wearing masks and facial coverings when shopping, especially when shopping at Crestwell businesses. Our local businesses have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 virus and the required guidelines. Many of them struggling just to stay afloat. Oops, somebody's got a microphone on. Their success and possibility of recovery is very much dependent upon us all following the facial mask and face covering guidelines. They could be shut down tomorrow if customers are not following those guidelines. So really important that we continue to do that for our businesses. I make my request out of respect for our local businesses and their owners. Many of these people are our friends and neighbors, and that's certainly true with myself. They have decided to invest and build their businesses right here in Crestwell. We all owe them our respect and gratitude for choosing Crestwell. Wearing masks or facial coverings is not a political issue. It's a show of respect and concern for our fellow Americans. And that is what is expected also as our civic responsibility. So please support our Crestwell businesses, show respect to your fellow Americans, and wear your masks or face coverings. We will all be very grateful. So that concludes the mayor's report for this evening, and we move on to item 2, which is committee reports. And we have a public safety report from Councilor Inman, it looks like.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Public Safety Committee has met May, June, July, and to review our charges. The first one we did complete, which was Charge A with the recommendation of the Public Safety Survey. And Charge B was to review and make recommendations regarding the methodology for the calculation of the public safety fee. And that was to report back in March. Fast forward, here we are in July, and that deadhead ended with the methodology. And so currently we just have the Charge C, which is working with Sergeant Denham with the National Night Out, which was originally scheduled for August, but now it's moved to October. So that has been a discussion that we have. And also just want to thank Michelle and Jim for assisting with technology and able to have our meetings. I'm not for sure if I would have been able to figure that out. So thank you to both of you. So, and then we also did have a conversation about an outreach plan, which that's also been put on hold. So right now we're focusing on the National Night Out moved to October.
Okay, very good. That moves us to item 2B, which is the Lane Act report.
Yes, so that meeting has been ongoing, and some of the highlights, because I had to go back and remember from March, is there is going to be a Highway 99 West Transit feasibility study, and that's going to be from Junction City to McMinnville. And then also I had mentioned in the past about the ODOT strategic pilot, where there was 2 acts that were picked. One was Lane Act, and then another one is Northeast Act. And that's still in the process, just with the pandemic that's been pushed back to late July. And then also the statewide transportation improvement program, STIP, is in the process of being modified. So that's what I have.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 3A, which is a presentation from Rain and Ariel Rubin. Welcome, Ariel.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. I'm going to share my screen here. Screen. Oh. Are you all able to see my screen?
Not at this point.
I wonder if I have screen sharing capabilities.
We saw you there for a little bit, Ariel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What about now? Yes?
No.
Yes, we can see. I can see
now
your
we
screen.
see your. Yeah, now we see your screen.
Yay! Excellent.
Oh, very good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me, City of Creswell, Council and Mayor, and of course City Manager Michelle. I really appreciate your time here. Let's get right into it. Just a brief introduction of myself. I don't know if I've met all of you directly. I thought I would just briefly talk about who I am. So my name is Ariel Rubin, and I am the Rural Lane Venture Catalyst for Coburg, Creswell, and Florence. My family owns a business called Hummingbird Wholesale in Eugene, and we are a distributor of organic whole food. So you may have seen our food in a store like My Choice or Sundance or Capella. I don't believe we sell to the Farmland Market in Creswell at this point. I went away to college, and I ended up, after college, moving to San Diego and getting a job working at a company that was matchmaking startups with investors. So I learned all about startup culture and what it takes to run a business, but more from the sort of venture capital Silicon Valley side of things, which was very interesting. I ended up not loving it, and so I moved home to Oregon to rejoin my family's business a few years ago. And I got ushered into the food community in Eugene, and I realized that there was a lot of young people working with their families. So I started a next generation business owner group. And you can see here some of the folks from Nancy's Yogurt and Yogi Tea and New Natural Stevia and Organic Redneck Farm. And so we toured each other's businesses and chatted about next generation business and family business. Wonderful. And then I joined a startup making hazelnut milk, and we just launched into stores in Oregon, and we're very, very happy. Despite the pandemic, we were able to launch our hazelnut milk. And then on the side, I have a website business where I build websites, do videography, and graphic design. So that is me in a nutshell. Oh yes, and now I'm actually full-time with Florence Coburg and Cresswell as a rural venture catalyst. So I'm very pleased to be a part of Oregon Rain. So a little bit about Oregon Rain, and just let me double check, can you all still see my screen and my advancing slides?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you. So this is our team. Our executive director, Carolyn Cummings, is front and center, and she is our fearless leader. She has a very extensive business past. Jennifer Damiani on the left helps us raise money and deals a lot with grants and operations. And then the rest of us are all venture catalysts across Oregon. Things to know about venture capitalists. So we only go where we are invited. We practice listening really, really well, and we try not to should on anybody. You know, we found that some mentors like to tell you what to do. We understand all businesses are completely different, and you should really just guide people along, you know, their sense bias or whatever track that they believe in. We're just there to guide and assist. We don't take equity or payments, so our services are completely free to businesses. And we try to collaborate with everybody, and I'll talk a little bit more later on of some of the local businesses that I've collaborated with in Crest. And we strive to build entrepreneurial ecosystems. So that essentially means the infrastructure for startups and small businesses that they can use to build upon. We really believe in the ecosystem. Thank you to Michelle Amber, City Manager Cresswell, for inviting us in, and of course all of you, City Council members and Mayor, of course. Again, we only go when we're invited, so you invited us in, and here we are. We really appreciate being here. So we connect entrepreneurs with four things. People, so obviously that's a network, could be mentors, co-founders, other business folk. Programs, so we put on a variety of different workshops, educational programs, networking events, and of course had to change all that due to COVID, which I'll talk more about later as well. Physical access, so that could mean like a kitchen space or a co-working space, or you know, we help you try and solve those physical needs as well. And of course to capital, and that's always a tricky one, but we try and help each business and their business model raise the appropriate capital. So that could be grants, that could be crowdfunding, that could be investment from friends and family, that could be venture capital. So depending on their particular genre of business. And our mission is to partner with Oregon communities to catalyze entrepreneurial ecosystems, as I mentioned, connect entrepreneurs to resources, including overlooked entrepreneurs. We've been really focusing on Hispanic entrepreneurs and women and people of color, and also contribute to the creation of prosperous economies. That's, of course, our end goal. And our vision is that all communities support, value, and celebrate entrepreneurs. And that their regional leaders, that the regional leaders recognize entrepreneurs are primary creator of net new jobs. That actually most of the net new jobs are created by small businesses, not Fortune 500 companies or you know, large businesses. And that's nationwide. And that small and rural communities in Oregon have thriving economies, and that a culture of possibility is embraced. And when it comes to economic development, many people, we've found that many cities, many people, many communities have these three pillars very strong. There's the recruitment arm, there's the business retention and expansion, BRE, and then of course there's marketing the region for tourism. We provide that fourth leg of the stool, which is entrepreneurship and innovation. And we found that focusing on the small businesses as a key element to economic development as well as innovation is crucial. And we also recognize that entrepreneurship is a team sport, so it takes everybody. It takes, just like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It definitely takes a village to raise a company. Okay, and I'm going to move on to some of the few things that we've done here in Crestwell, which I'm really excited about. And we've been in Crestwell since January 2020, which, yay, I'm very happy about. So since January 2020, we have identified 26 entrepreneurs, and 23 of which are active within our program in the last 6 months. So that could be one-on-one mentorship, that could be attending events, that could be attending some of our workshops and accelerators online. We've had 6 in-person events, and with 50 plus attendees across all of them. And this was before COVID. So I hosted 3 big workshops, and then we had a few partnership workshops with the chamber, or events with the chamber, which were great. And then COVID hit, and we moved everything online, and we've had 10 virtual events after COVID. And we've identified 2 mentors in the region. I would love to identify more. That's something that I would love to speak with all of you about and get your help with. And we have not found any angel investors, unfortunately. No one with high net worth that would be excited about investing back into the Crestwell community that I've found so far. But maybe you all can point me in the right direction. So there's some metrics. This is just an example of one of the workshops we did. We did the secret to business. And we went through many different ideas of what the secret to business could be, and landed on a network being, in my mind, the biggest secret and the most important thing, that there's a really strong network, because I've been a part of so many different thriving business communities, and it seems to be way more about who you know sometimes than even the quality of your product, because if you have a great product but no one knows about it, that's a problem in and of itself. So yeah, we're all about that ecosystem. So some great Crestwell partners that I'm pleased to talk about. We have a great relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sad that it's no longer continuing. We have hopefully been able to play some of that role, and we'd like to play more of that role as well. Happy to get your feedback on that, sending out newsletters and whatnot. The Chronicle, they are a new member of, we have a 10-week sales and marketing accelerator that's happening right now, and I'll talk about that more later. But the Chronicle is part of that, and I'm really excited to be forging a strong relationship with them. And of course, the Crestwell Community Market, Tiffany is amazing, and she has been gracious enough to sort of invite me into Crestwell Community Market Circle, and along with many of the small makers and crafters. So I've been able to support them as best I can, and I'm hoping to do more so in the future. So COVID hit. Let's talk about COVID and the impact that we've seen. So some of the things that we've seen is that startup capital has pretty much diminished right now. People are not looking to invest or do anything risky. Entrepreneurs, of course, have been losing their full-time jobs or part-time jobs. Startups that were post-revenue have seen losses for sure. Oh, and excuse the background, I actually have a thunderstorm going on right now, so sorry if it's loud. Some entrepreneurs lack the technology and skills to pivot quickly. We've seen that, people have been needing to move online and they don't know how, and that's something we've been helping with. Some entrepreneurs lack financial literacy to take advantage of the loan programs and manage them successfully. We've been helping a lot with that. And entrepreneurs are pivoting and finding new creative ways to change their businesses and grow. So that's sort of a positive note. We have been finding that entrepreneurs are sort of moving in new and exciting directions. And that's very encouraging. And how Oregon Rain has been responding. So we pivoted within 1 week. COVID hit, and we realized we needed to move everything online. And the benefits of having a 6-person team is that we're pretty darn nimble, and we were able to mobilize very quickly online, moving everything, all of our workshops, networking opportunities, and mentorship. And we've been meeting a lot with entrepreneurs one-on-one via Zoom. We've been helping businesses apply for funding like the PPP and the EIDL loans. I'm very pleased to have assisted quite a few entrepreneurs in Cresswell apply for the PPP and the EIDL. And unfortunately, a lot of the new funding opportunities that are coming down the pipeline don't allow folks to apply for those if they've already received some government funding. So that's one little hitch that's a little disappointing. Yeah, some people didn't get quite enough from the PPP or EIDL, and they're still in a tight spot, but they can't get anything else. So that's been a bit of a pain. We've been triaging and helping entrepreneurs pivot and change or even wind down their businesses, which is an unfortunate fact. But no one in Cresswell, but we've as a company have had to help businesses realize that, you know what, maybe it's time to throw in the towel and start something new. And we've been supporting communities who want to develop emergency funding programs. And I'm very pleased that Cresswell was sort of the spearhead of the Lane County funding with Community Lending Works. I additionally helped Coburg launch a grant program, and that was really exciting and impactful. And a few other things, we've been advocating for minority entrepreneurs and rural small communities with the government, with the federal government, and I'll share more about that in a minute. We've been connecting entrepreneurs with key mentors and resources that can assist them in a tangible way. And of course, we've been a shoulder to cry on. I've had a lot of, tearful conversations, and that's been one thing. I studied counseling and psychology, and as a business coach, I expected to be all numbers and business, but nope, it's a lot of tears and a lot of emotions. And so, yeah. And of course, during this trying time, there's been more of that for sure. And we continue to connect people to programs, assets, I missed people, and of course, capital. And we've been staying hopeful and adopting quickly as things develop. So that is what we've been trying to do. Here is a call that we hosted. You can see in the middle here, Senator Wyden, federal Senator Wyden. We hosted a entrepreneur advocacy call where we featured many entrepreneurs across Oregon to speak directly with Senator Wyden to share their experience and the impact of COVID. And we see here Scott Pisani from Patso. So he was on that call, which was great. He got to share his experience with the senator directly. And that was very impactful. Senator Wyden was very overwhelmed with that. And he was trying his best to advocate for us. And then we quickly moved all of our workshops online, and we had a series of about 10 workshops over the last few months. And then we were getting a lot of feedback that businesses wanted something specific to sales and marketing. So we decided, you know what, we need to launch an accelerator program. So we pulled together a 10-week accelerator program that we're calling the Rainmaker. So hopefully it can help you rain sales, make rain. And yeah, we're thrilled. We actually have 140 participants across Oregon, and some from Cresswell, which is wonderful. And over the 10 weeks, I just want to give you a little brief idea of what this program looks like. We actually had our kickoff week with Seth Tibbett from Tofurkey, and he was able to share his sales tactics over the years. Week 2, we actually had Jill Nelson from Ruby Receptionist. She's in Portland. I don't know if you've heard of Ruby Receptionist, but they are a very successful virtual receptionist company. And we just had week 3. So we're coming out of week 3, and our executive director, Caroline Cummings, worked with everyone to make revenue projections and talk about market sizing, which was really interesting. And now we're excited to jump into Digital Marketing 101, selling using Facebook and Google Ads. We'll have Sales 101, dollars and cents, making it rain. We have a cohort's choice where everyone will get to choose if they feel like they want something specific. And then our last week is a graduation with some pitching. And we've actually been able to raise a significant amount of money, which we're really excited about and surprised about, that we're going to be giving away as cash prizes. So I'm really hoping that some of the Cresswell businesses participating will be a recipient of those prizes. Cross your fingers. And this is just a few of the people that are involved, just a great little montage here. But but we've been promoting them, which has been really, really wonderful. And they've just all been connecting with each other and promoting each other. And it's sort of a wonderful thing to see sort of magic happening across Oregon. And so many businesses have similar experiences, especially around COVID, and they've been, you know, really comforting each other and gaining solace, and of course, connecting each other to leads, and that's been wonderful. Oh, it's just a goofy thing, but some of the other things I do, I help design your door hanger for 4th of July that some of you may have seen on your business doors. So that's just one fun project I did with Michelle. This is another really exciting thing that I'm just starting and I'm thrilled about. I've just been starting these business talks with businesses, and as part of sort of a support Crestwell business, sort of campaign. And just last week, I featured Michelle and Seth from Blue Valley Bistro. Sorry, Melissa and Seth from Blue Valley Bistro, which was wonderful. And we talked for about 30 minutes, and they shared their entire story, their business story, and they gave me a little tour, and their sweet daughter was on the screen too, which was really fun. And they gave some sort of tips and tricks for surviving COVID. So you can find that on my Instagram page, but I'll of course share it with you all as well. And I have lined up Crestwell Wellness Center with Chelsea. Bigfoot Fudge is on the docket, and then Sasquatch Soap, Crippen Design, and hopefully more to come. So I'm really excited to start these business conversations with some of the local businesses. Oh, and just some important statistics in relation to COVID. So following a disaster, these are from FEMA. These are FEMA statistics. They say that about 90% of smaller companies will fail within a year unless they can resume operations within 5 days. So this is sort of a tricky statistic. It says basically after a disaster happens, if they don't, at the very end, if they don't relaunch within 5 days, then it tends to be really tricky for businesses to restart. COVID is its own animal. So, we're seeing a bit more resiliency and not as drastic, but it's definitely a bit frightening. And roughly 40 to 60% of small businesses never reopen their doors following a disaster. And it seems like Crestwell has been pretty resilient. And startups create the most net new jobs in the United States, and that's from the Kauffman Foundation. So we need startups to lead our economy out of this for sure. And yeah, now is the time to continue supporting our startups and small businesses, and continue investing in our entrepreneurial community. So I would love to, please connect me with any businesses or entrepreneurs that need immediate support if you know of any. And of course, it's not just me. I'm a part of a broader network, so I couldn't do it alone. And sometimes I stand for more of a pass-through, like, oh, wow, it seems like this is your problem. Go talk to this person. So please direct people towards me. And of course, thank you for supporting our entrepreneurial development work in your community. It's more important now than ever. Absolutely. And just a few quick things to end on, ways to get involved. I would love your help. If you want to become a mentor, that'd be amazing. I'm trying to just gather a mentor network together so I can say, oh, okay, you need this, go talk to this person. So, like I said, that entrepreneurial ecosystem, so that fabric that can support all those businesses. So please let me know if you'd like to be a mentor. And yeah, if you'd like to speak at any of our events or be on a panel, we could organize a panel if there's any topic that any of you are passionate about or, would like to see as part of the Crestwell community. And Fireside Chats is a really fun time. Usually bring in, a successful business person or, a local startup or a local entrepreneur to just share their story. And that can be wonderful. And I actually hosted one last month for female founders, and I put on the screen some virtual fire. So we actually got to sit around the virtual fire and just chat, which was wonderful. And of course you can initiate anything or request anything. So please let me know. And of course, with promotion, Michelle has done a great job. We've been collaborating and sharing each other's information. So let's continue that. And of course, one way to support this is to keep supporting us and and our ability to serve small businesses. So we really appreciate you all, and thank you again for increasing our budget this fiscal year. We're just absolutely thrilled to be spending more time and investing more time in your community. And just a few last things of what's next. I'm going to be doing a roundtable with Cresswell Wellness. Chelsea is trying to figure out how to pivot. She has a lot of decisions on her plate right now. And so this Thursday, I have 4 or 5 mentors that are all going to sort of wrap around for an hour and a half. And we're just going to, get down into the weeds and support her as best we can. So that I'm really excited about. And of course, I'll continue with the online one-on-one mentorship. Done a lot of that. And of course, all of our events. I'm actually really excited. So we're doing this 10-week sales and marketing accelerator, but I've launched a sidecar accelerator, which has no commitments and it's much more lax. And we've been reviewing all of the content from the accelerator, but a week later in the evening. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. It's really fun. And of course, we'd love to have any of you sit in on any workshops or, for any events. We're thrilled to have you. And of course, we would love to support more economic development projects. So Michelle has been inviting me into some of the local economic development projects, and it's been really interesting. So we'd be really excited to be more a part of that. And Michelle and I were talking a lot about launching a Cresswell business campaign, or support Cresswell businesses. And again, I think that sort of can tag team with the videos that I've been putting out, interviewing some of the local businesses, and yeah, we'll see how that forms in the next month or two. But very excited about that. And of course, my weekly mentoring, you can contact me. I'm sure Michelle can share my contact information, but it's ariel@oregonrain.org. Welcome to reach out anytime. This is where you can find us. You could follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Meetup. We have, this is supposed to say Cresswell, excuse me. And then Twitter and our website. So yeah, you're welcome to follow us at all those places and keep in touch. And yeah, that is all I have for you.
Well, that was really informative, Ariel. Thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Counselors, do you have any questions for Ariel?
Go
ahead. I'm not seeing any hands raised. I would like to share with you too, Ariel, that I had a gentleman who was a local person who was looking for a way to invest and to donate to local causes. And I am going to contact that person again and see if this is something that they might be interested in being a donor for Oregon Rain and for support of Cresswell businesses. So I will reach out to them later in the week and get back to you on that.
Wow, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Well, maybe that's our first investor identified. So thank you.
Keeping my fingers crossed. That would be lovely to see that.
Fabulous.
Okay, counselors, anything further? All right. Well, thank you, Ariel. I really, really appreciate your attendance here tonight and your informative presentation. I think that definitely opened my eyes about a few things and caused some questions for me that I'll follow up on with later. So I really appreciate it, and hopefully the counselors will do the same. So
excellent.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that concludes item number 3 on our agenda. That moves to item 4, discussion items, and item A, which is the discussion about the proposed gas tax ordinance. So, counselors, do you have any questions for Ross? I do believe Ross is here tonight. He has created this document for us to consider, and we'll move forward from there. Any questions, council? Okay, so councilors, I did receive, Councilor Inman, go ahead.
Yeah, so I did have one question. So the gas tax, that's just for motor vehicles. Is that more than just automobiles?
Great question. So yes, it would be fuel. So whatever you buy at the gas station, it's basically added to the price of the gas at the gas station.
Okay.
So it would be motorcycles, ATVs, and it's diesel as well. So it would be trucks too.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And I don't know if it might help just to maybe spur some discussion. I can give a very short introduction of what you're actually looking at here.
Yes, that would be great, Ross.
And so and quite frankly, I mean, so you had a measure on the ballot in May to change the charter. It was your city manager charter amendment to change the words city administrator to city manager. This is very similar in process. Of course, the context is different. And so what you have is a council resolution that proposes to put this on the ballot in November. And then attached to the resolution is the actual ordinance that would be adopted by the voters if it passes. So this creates a new chapter in your code. And I've put it in Title 3, a new chapter 50. So it's 3.50 of your code. And it lays out the specifics of a fuel tax. And then Exhibit B is the actual ballot title wording that would appear on the ballot in November if you move forward. The ordinance itself is certainly not all my handiwork. It's the League of Oregon Cities has developed a model, and I very largely took their model. I made a few tweaks based upon how I've seen it work in other cities, and how I think it would work best in Creswell, but very few tweaks. And so I looked at the city of Newport, which I know has a fuel tax, and it's been in the works, been working for a while now. And they've had a good history with it. And they also work with ODOT in collecting the fees. So I use theirs as a good sample as well. And that's a good segue. So how is this collected? There are about 28 or so local gas taxes. There's a couple of counties and mostly cities that have their own gas taxes. And the majority of these use ODOT to collect the gas taxes. So ODOT is collecting the state tax, and they just collect the city or county tax at the same time. So it makes it actually easy for if it's easy to pay a tax, it makes it easy on the gas stations because they have one form. They use the ODOT form, and all the money goes to ODOT, and then ODOT spreads it out to the local jurisdictions. And just looking at Lane County, I'm looking at the list of jurisdictions that have local taxes. So City of Coburg has a local tax, Cottage Grove, Eugene, Springfield, Veneta, and Oak Ridge all have local taxes in Lane County. And most of them are about 3 cents, but Coburg is actually 6 cents and Eugene is 5 cents. So what we have here in front of you is a proposal for a 3 cents per gallon. And I'll end my intro there.
Very good. Thank you, Ross. That was very helpful. Okay, councilors, any further questions for Mr. Ross? Gosh, I can't think of your last name right off the top of my head.
Williamson, no worries.
There we go. Thank you.
The guy with the beard.
Hardly ever see you around, yeah.
That's right.
So, council, I do want to remind that as part of our communication, I did see that we received an email, or we all should have received an email from Mr. Spencer, who owns the Union 76 gas station here in town, expressing his concern and wanting more information. So I will be working with Michelle to craft a response to some of his questions and get back to him in that regard. So we will be, I do not want to leave them out of the discussion by any means. Mr. Spencer and as well as the other station in town, I will try and reach out to the owner of that station as well. And, it's important that we, reach out, make sure that we have as much questions answered as possible and go from there. So I will be working with Michelle on crafting a response for that. So. Okay, so council, how do we want to proceed? Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to let you know that I did follow up on the gas tax with Douglas Klebe, who is the ODOT person who is in charge of managing the collections. And he said, because you had some questions about whether there would be an upfront cost and whether there would be any sort of delay in implementing the tax, he said that the upfront cost just to set up with ODOT is $30,000. And then it would not want to do it until the next fiscal year. And then after it's set up, ODOT would take 0.25% of all of our revenues. And he strongly suggested that we follow Oak Ridge's model and collect it ourselves. Since we only have 2 stations here in town, he thought we could probably manage that. So I talked to Jim about it, but I also talked to Oak Ridge about it. And they said that they were really happy with doing it themselves. It wasn't hard at all because the tax is not on the station owner, but actually, as Ross mentioned, it's the delivery service that brings the gas. So it's actually charged in a bulk rate at the time the gas is delivered to the station and paid by the people who sell the gas to the station. He said the problem comes when you have a supplier that is not on the up and up, and then it gets very difficult. But you can ask ODOT to do an audit, but because they won't be as responsive as if they were collecting it themselves, is what he has found out to be the case. But he said, other than that, administering it is very easy unless you have, as he said, they have one problem in Oak Ridge with a person who's delivering gas and is not reporting correctly. So I just wanted to give you that information as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Councilor Prochu, it looks like you had your hand raised, sir.
Yeah, oops, make sure I'm unmuted. You guys can hear me okay, right? Okay. So I wanted to address a little bit more of Bill's letter just for a second. I know that we kind of missed out on some of the work sessions that we might have had where we would have been discussing this item, and therefore we would have had a little bit more possibly public input along the way. So we discussed at our last meeting that we would go ahead and talk about it at this session, and then I think we have one more meeting where we decide whether or not we put that on the ballot. Is that correct?
That's correct. You can't take any action tonight. You can only take action at a city council meeting. So tonight was for discussion. And thank you, Councilor Prochu, for bringing that out. Part of the problem has been meeting people face to face right now. It just is very difficult and it doesn't happen. So, you know, it's not been easy to do some of our developments and such, and everything seems to be much more complicated and take twice as much time. So this is a time for you to discuss it. I mean, last meeting, we didn't even know if you were interested in moving forward on this. So yeah, this is time for you to discuss it, and then we can certainly get together with Mr. Spencer and answer his questions. I did get a chance to look at the questions, and I don't think there are anything that can't be answered.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Michelle, as well. So, council, go ahead, Kevin.
My question really still around the public process, and I guess that what I want to know is that next council meeting that we have is really going to be the only time that we can receive input on that. Is that correct?
Well, you could ask for any time between now and then, as much public input as you would like. After you vote, you've made a decision on whether or not to put it on the ballot. But up until that time, up until looks like August 10th, you can receive input on it. You can receive input on it afterwards. It's just the vote will take precedence over it.
All right, thank you.
And in fact, I would recommend that if you do decide to put this on the ballot, that you do a lot of public outreach on it, or else you're just putting something on the ballot that has no context. So it is a heavy lift, and it's a very short time period to be doing this, because you need to develop a why you're doing this. You need to develop some outreach materials. You need to think about questions and answers, frequently asked questions, those types of things. And it is a lot to do in a very short time. And once you decide to place it on the ballot, we as staff members cannot really be much assistance to you. We can provide you with facts, but we can't provide you with a whole lot of information that would be considered election materials.
I think that I would like to, and I think that the only way that we're going to know, we would need to know before the next council meeting, before we vote, because I really would like to know whether we are going to be working with Bill to inform and educate the community, or if we're going to be working against him. I don't want to be doing that, and I think that I would be in favor of shelving this if it meant that we had more time to properly engage the community.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for your comment. Councilors, please weigh in. Councilor Castillo.
Yes, and maybe after what you just said, Michelle, maybe you can't answer the question, or maybe not. And the question is kind of to Michelle and Ross. In the cities that you just mentioned, Ross, that do have the gas tax, I'm assuming those were all voted on, right, by the citizens?
This is Ross. I believe most were voted on, but not all, because there was a period of time when a vote wasn't required, but the statute has changed. So I think some of the early adopters, even like Portland and maybe even Eugene when they started out, I think they were probably just council adoptions.
Okay, and I guess where I'm going with this is because there is such a short window of time, I'm curious as to some insight as to how this was sold to the cities that did pass. It was passed by the voters, because I feel like it is going to be a hard sell in such a short window of time. So how do we do that, I guess, is my question. And it may be, I don't know, it may be kind of a crazy question as well, is can RAIN help us?
RAIN can't help you with this. It's not an economic development strategy. So unfortunately, yeah, Ariel's pretty awesome. I'd like to work with her for everything. But yeah, a lot of the agencies focus on how much of the gas tax is generated from outside your community. It's very strong argument in favor of gas tax that you have visitors to your community who actually pay the tax. And being on I-5, we would have a lot of through traffic that comes into our town and would pay a gas tax that then we would benefit from. The other, I think, part that's an important part of the whole idea that we're presenting to you about street funding is that we need to have a complete package. We need to have revenues come in that are sufficient to meet our needs. And you have seen what our street needs are. You've seen, from our streets plan, what our need is, and you've seen how tremendous it is. And it's going to take a package of revenue strategies to get us there. And one of those strategies is gas tax. Another is probably LIDs. And a third is probably a transportation utility fee. All of these three types of revenue generation are used throughout by cities. And it's not something that is easy to put in quickly. These things take time because you need to develop an awareness in the community of the need for a street or the need for improvements like what we're doing on A Street. We were fortunate because we had the money in our pocket to do A Street. We're a little bit unfortunate because A Street is going to be a little bit more expensive than the money we had in our pocket. But it would be nice to have sufficient funding when we, or at least sufficient funding strategies when we move forward to do additional streets, because they are very expensive. And we're looking at doing Second Street next. And if we waited to just get the money from the state, we would be waiting years to improve Second Street. And that's why we're coming to you and asking you to consider these various strategies. They're not easy to do. You need to, if you're going to go to the voters, you have to have all your answers ready. So you need to work as a team to figure out what that kind of public outreach looks like. And we, as staff members, cannot really help you with that once you decide to put it on the ballot. And so it's pretty much, do you feel you have enough information to move forward and explain why we need a gas tax in Cresswell at this time? That's the question.
Excellent explanation, Michelle. Thank you very much. Councillor Knudsen, go ahead.
When you put it that way, I feel weary. I feel like I don't have enough information. I feel like I'm not prepared to answer everybody's questions that might have them. And even if we had another work session on it, I don't think one more or two more work sessions is going to cut it. If we really want this to pass, I think we need to work harder and longer to get it to pass instead of, I think before I thought, well, let's like put it on the ballot, and if it fails, then we'll try again. But I feel like that's not an appropriate strategy anymore, because it just kind of feels flippant, and I don't want voters to think that we're flippant about this. So I personally don't feel comfortable moving forward.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Councillor McReynolds.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciated, pardon me, that Bill Spencer chimed in, and my appreciation for that this might make some things difficult for him is increased by his correspondence, but I'm still not so moved that it would really jar folks coming off I-5. And thank you, Ross, for the list, communicating that other cities had a 3% tax also. I think it's key to observe that likely that 3% tax is static, that it's not something that gas station owners can expect to increase every couple of years, that it's probably will stay at 3% while we develop a suite of other revenue sources. I find it's compelling to pull money off of I-5. That's a huge asset. And folks will adapt to a cost, I think. Although 3 cents a gallon is what, 39 cents a tank for me? It's not that big a deal. If it's not the only source, I think we could sell it if it's not the only thing that we're relying on for raising the funds. But other than that, it's fees and direct costs, right? To people here. There's a cost to not doing it.
Councillor Prochu, go ahead, sir. Unmute your mic, sir.
Yeah, that. I'm sorry, guys. Like when I go and I click unmute and it mutes, and when I mute and it unmutes. So what I was trying to say is that I don't think that there's any of us that has any doubt that this is the funding mechanism or one of the funding mechanisms that we want to use. I think that we want to make sure that we do it properly. And I think that some of the data for which Councillor McReynolds is speaking to, like, I would really like to hear from Bill exactly what the metrics are as far as what his considerations are with remaining solvent. So if he feels that he's not going to be competitive anymore, I'd like to maybe understand exactly what that looks like to him. And I don't think that we have the time really to engage in those discussions. So that's another thing that I think makes me feel more compelled to wait. I wanted to go back also to the other time frames that we might be able to put this on the ballot. I know that we don't really want to do it on a special election because that costs money, and I think a primary election costs money. So is our real only next opportunity where we don't have to pay to do this the next, would it be 2 years from now?
That would be correct.
Okay. So that's another consideration. We want to wait. So and I'm done.
Thanks, Councilor Brochu. Councilor McReynolds.
I'm sorry, I didn't communicate my time, my thoughts on time. I think it's a little rushed right now also. I completely agree with what Councilor Brochu's point was, that it feels a little rushed. But as we go through it, I would probably support moving towards a tax. I'm done.
Okay, very good. Councilor Inman, Councilor Castillo, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I would just add that I feel that this gas tax is a great idea. The city needs it, but I want to see this passed. But I don't think we're going to accomplish that in this short window of time. So yes, I think we need to come up with basically we have a campaign, and it needs to be done, and it needs to be done right in order for it to pass. And I don't think we're there yet right now. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Councilor Inman.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think the timing, we don't want to be rushed. We want to be successful and also educate citizens. Although I think a gas tax is a source of revenue and will help tremendously, it's the timing as well.
All right. Well, Michelle, go ahead.
I might recommend too that this might be something for the Transportation Committee to take a look at. They might be very effective in developing the campaign strategy actually, and I think they kind of worked on the water ballot measure when you did that with the charter. I think they were involved with developing some language for the charter along with Ross. So it may be that you want to kick it to the committee, actually all three of these, and develop a time frame and also some educational components before you actually go to put it on the ballot. Because really for staff to work with you, and I think Ross will agree with me, is when it goes on the ballot. So that's kind of the line where we can't really help you with the campaign after that.
All right, very good. Martha, did you have your hand raised still or not? Okay, very good. Well, everybody else has weighed in, so I'm going to go ahead and weigh in as well. So I'm feeling very much the same way as I'm hearing other councilors speak. I think I'm very much in favor of a gas tax. I think that things need to be done in a very thoughtful and measured way. Do so right. I think our one chance at getting this done, we have to get it done and get it done right. And to do that, I believe that we're going to need much more public input. We're going to need like Michelle suggested, frequently asked questions, a real thought process as to why, what's it going to be used for, all of those things. I was involved on the public safety levy that went on the ballot 3 years ago. And, even though we had a measured strategy, it still went down resoundingly. So, and that was tough for me to take. It really was. And I don't want to see this happen to a council in the future, that whoever takes the lead on that one is going to suffer the same feelings that I did. I really like not to see that happen. So I'm very much in the same opinion that I would like to see this tabled right at the moment, and I would like to see this go forward in the future. And if we want to get it onto a committee, I'm fully in favor of doing that. I welcome all input that we have. And Ross, thank you so much for being here tonight to attend to this matter and answer our questions, and for your creation. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Michelle, for weighing in. You've given some great advice, and I really, really appreciate that very much. So, all right. So I guess we have our decision at this point. No decision, but a consensus. Let me apologize for that. And we will table that for this time. So that will move us to discussion item number B, which is race, social justice, and white supremacy. Michelle, did you want to talk about the memo that you prepared at this point in time?
Sure, I'll take a stab at this. This is a big topic, and as you know, it's one that's incredibly controversial right now. There's a lot of support for it, but there's also some pushback and misunderstanding, I think, about the language that's being used. However, recently the mayor and I received an email with a request, and I think it's a good place to start the conversation for the city of Cresswell. I don't think we've really talked about this. I know while I've been here, we haven't discussed this. And my concern is that this really is something that's important and something that we should give some time and, again, more consideration to. Um, and as the mayor said, to do it right. It would be easy to, I mean, I could very simply take the work that the county has done, modify it for Cresswell, and we could pass it. But what would that mean? I mean, really, would it get to the heart of what we want Cresswell to be? Would any of the words in a resolution or a proclamation actually affect the systemic change that we're hearing about now? So anyway, I thought this was a really interesting request. They asked the city of Cresswell to publicly and overtly share that we believe that Black Lives Matter, that there's a plan in place for the citizens of Cresswell to peacefully protest, that the city has a plan in case of peaceful protest that makes a shift away from peaceful, that there's a plan in place for regular review of any police force that is regularly serving in our city, that if an officer is receiving complaints, that a corrective action or training will take place, that the leadership for the city of Cresswell and any police force will regularly engage in training education around issues of social justice, power, privilege, and oppression, that the city is actively working to place and retain citizens of color in leadership positions. I think that this, like I said before, is a good starting point. And I can, in my memo, I addressed each of those points. I think that the statement that Black Lives Matter is a strong statement, but and while it's an important conversation to have, and it is an opening point for the right things to discuss, I don't think it's comprehensive enough to encompass the whole Black, Indigenous, people of color question. Black Lives Matter is also a bit of language that can be easily understood and can be easily addressed as, well, all lives matter, which is, something that has actually ironically been used to shut down the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think language here matters. We could support Black Lives Matter, but I think I would recommend that you go further and think about the Black, Indigenous, and people of color question. But of course, it's your policy, so it would be up to you on where you fall on that. And then the next three, that there's a plan in place for the citizens of Cresswell to peacefully protest. We do have a plan in place. We follow the ACLU. And we handed out, I gave and photocopied all of the how to protest correctly pamphlets to our police officers, to our deputies, so that they could hand them out to anyone who wanted to peacefully protest. And I know that Sergeant Denham we just were talking today about what's going on up in Portland, and he shared his views on that with me. And it's, we have a man in that position who knows the difference between a crime and a non-crime. And he understands his role in that area, in that arena. He understands that when somebody commits a crime, they need to have a law enforcement response. When someone is not committing a crime, they don't need one. So we did have a discussion about that. That the city has a plan in case peaceful protest makes a shift away from peaceful. Again, he does have a plan in place. The county has a lot of backup. If we went into a riot, there are folks he can call. And again, the focus would be on the people committing crimes, not necessarily on peaceful people. Although a riot is a violent shift from a demonstration to a riot. So if a demonstration becomes violent, then you move to a riot, and then of course you have different you have an ability to remove people from a place if you're having a riot. So that kicks in. That if an officer is receiving complaints, that a corrective action and training will take place. Well, we have had that situation happen, and the officer was put on administrative leave and he never came back. So I think that the sheriff's office handled that one. That there's a plan in place for regular review of police force that is regularly serving in our city. I think that happens every year when we do the contract. If you're not happy with the contract, you have the opportunity. It's not an ongoing contract. It's actually a contract that we renew every single year. So that's a great opportunity if there was any kind of dissatisfaction with the contract to talk with them. Additionally, every time we get new deputies, I'm included in the discussions regarding that. So it's not like we don't have any say. If we had a deputy that we knew was a problem, we could say we don't want them on the contract and they could be removed. Number 6, that the leadership for the city of Creswell and any police force will regularly engage in training education around issues of social justice, power, privilege, and oppression. I think we need this training. I'll just say that. I don't think an ordinance provides training. So maybe we need to talk about what that looks like, how to make that happen, if that's something you want to see, how we can do it for our officials as well as for our staff. And then number 6 again, which is not number 6, but I couldn't get it to number itself correctly, that the city is actively working to place and retain citizens of color in leadership positions. I think we need to develop a strategy for that. And I think that that goes to our goals and our mission statement. I think we need to look at those with different eyes and see if they actually do sound inclusive to the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. Also, I think maybe we need to look at goals and see if we need to set goals that are more inclusive specifically for that group. And I think we could also look at how our budget is structured as far as providing training or experiences or activities that would specifically be inclusive activities. So that was kind of the gist of my memo. I also provided you with a lot of reading. I didn't expect you to get through it all tonight, but for tonight. And but you know, one of the things I did give you was a racial equity action plan that I think we could step through, you know, as a group, and at some time, if you have an interest. And I don't know what else to say other than I'm willing to listen to what you think about this topic as well.
Excellent explanation, Michelle. I really appreciate that. And gathering all the information was, you know, I think we kind of tag teamed a little bit on that. I think you were ahead of me on 1 or 2, and I was ahead of you on 1 or 2. But it was really great to have all this information come forward. So, councilors, I'm going to open the floor for discussion. I will hold my comments until the last. So, would somebody like to speak first? Councilor McReynolds, raise your hand first.
Thank you, Mayor Zerval. I have a few, just a handful of bullet points. I really appreciate the training aspect and that Michelle's pushing things a little further out. And I'm sorry, I'm watching the YouTube feed and the mayor is still speaking. And it's weird. And then Kevin's raising his hand. Is there a lag? I'm sorry, everyone. That's just strangely distracting watching us. Well,
just go ahead and talk about that.
Thank you, sir. In the white bread vacuum that is Creswell, and it always has been, the training aspect is really appreciated. Bring the lessons to us, and perhaps the environment is better for a little more multicultural population. I wonder if there's any chance of adding our Latinx neighbors in some of this language. I know that we have a population here that's not necessarily always appearing comfortable And I'd like them to feel, that we're actively wanting to include folks. And I think it's ironic that we're having this discussion after our dramatic 4th of July. I think it's really cool that we had our parades and folks express themselves, but that we had to think about what if we had a different opinion on how to respond to something than LCSO. I remember Council President Knudsen asked some pretty incisive questions about what if we wanted to go a different way than our enforcement officers. And so I'm glad we're continuing the discussion from there. It's obviously contextual. And then in the past, we had the Wolf's Den here in Cresswell, and we really, because they were operating legally, we really had nothing that we could say regarding their presence or potential activities. Not that this would cause a ability to say something, but at least out loud, we would be saying that it's not a ripe environment for white supremacy and such things.
Thank you, Martha. Anything further? Okay, very good. I think Councillor Prochu had his hand up next.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess kind of where I want to start is that I want to make sure that I just say that I recognize that we do have a racism issue in Cresswell. I know it's not always something that you see because everything seems fine, but it's often the things that are not visible that are the things that we need to be paying attention to. So I really do see this one as being super important for us. If you look at some of the statistics for the number of Black people that we have in Cresswell compared to, like, say, Lane County as a whole, 1.3% in Lane County, which isn't that much, but because Cresswell has so few, our data registers as 0. I know that we don't have 0. I think that there are some, but it speaks to an issue that I think needs to be addressed, and that's that we don't have the diversity that I think that Cresswell could have, and there's got to be a reason for that. And so I think that a lot of what we do and the work that we're doing here is super important for addressing that. The thing that I do want to address too is that we did mention that we are focusing in this particular case on racism, but equity as a whole is basically what we're after. And it's not just enough to not be racist anymore. I think that anti-racism is something to embrace. And I really want to promote that and really make it uncomfortable, honestly, to be a racist in Cresswell. That's my vision, what I would like to see. But one of the things that I might throw out there as a way that we might be able to address this and show the community that we actually have a plan to address it, besides Michelle's laid out some good things that we're already doing. But we might want to consider maybe even forming a special commission, a board or a commission that is there to address specifically some of these things. They would be reviewing and making recommendations on training, reviewing the police activities, our contracts with LCSO, just a number of different things that I think that kind of a board would be fantastic for. So that's kind of my pitch today.
Thank you, Councillor Prochu. Councillors, other questions and comments? Amy or Misty or Alonso?
I'll go.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
I do agree we need some sort of plan. We need something in writing. It's hard because we're policymakers and I want to get that language right. But I think what Michelle said, like, yeah, we throw a policy out there and say, hey, don't do this. Is that enough? I don't think it's enough. I think we need to put more thought. And I like Kevin's idea on having some sort of committee, having more oversight so we can be more comfortable with our police presence and what the Lane County Sheriff's Office does for us or doesn't do for us. I mean, we don't have a lot of oversight with that contract besides when it comes up every year. I'm glad it's small enough, Sergeant Denham is our sergeant, and then we have deputies, and it's a small enough force that we kind of all know each other and we communicate really, really well with each other. And obviously they have a good relationship with our city manager, which is great, but not having direct knowledge of a lot of things, I don't know what we're missing out on. I guess I don't know what I don't know, and I'd like to know more, and I'd like to be more involved with that. That's all.
Okay, very good. Councillor Inman, Councillor Castillo? Councillor Castillo, go ahead. I'll come back to you in a moment, Misty.
I would just say that I would agree with it's got to be, it's much more than just passing an ordinance, passing some sort of document. It's anyone, we can all say that, make a statement, but do we really mean it? And as I was perusing through this small phone book of literature that Michelle shared with us, and I got to into the introduction of the kind of the guideline. I like how they don't make the public declaration until step 3. The first step is to set an example and strike the right tone. And I think that is just so important. And that's really what we need to do is set an example and throughout the community, and that it's spread throughout. So and that's all I'll say.
Very good. Councillor Inman.
Yes, I agree as well. And I really like Councillor Prochu's idea of having a committee or a board for review. I think also for me, it's what Councillor Knudsen is, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm not for sure if I really know what kind of force and how far the police deputies would go. And if there's things in place for that to be avoided. So I would also like to have a little bit more information as well.
Okay, councillors, any further comment before I weigh in? All right, I don't see any hands up. Well, I will say that I did go through the whole phone book and I did read the whole thing. It was long, involved. It was very arduous at times. The one thing I can share that I did garner from pretty much all of them is that all of them give a chronology of how things should move forward. And in several cases, there was a topic about creating a path, creating a language, creating just a language that we need to tell our citizens about. And then following that, there was a creation of a policy, and the policy in a lot of cases would be either Black Lives Matter or something similar to the Lane County. And then there was also one that I found that Roberta came together with from the city of Milwaukee, Oregon. And both of those had some really good things. Lane County's also got one that a policy that they adopted in regards to white supremacy. I think there needs to be kind of an overarching beginning point, and that beginning point for me would be a document, something along that encompasses all of those things. And then from that point, you also then, pardon me, create a path for the future, and that would be, creating a commission, creating a board to talk this all over, creating metrics that can be measurable through our deputies, through case things. Michelle talked about, the looking at all of our aspects as far as our mission statement and, all of those things, our strategic plan, all of those are going to need to be looked at. They're all going to be inclusive, because what we do, we need to do, and we need to do it right. And I think it needs to be much more than just a document. That is a great starting point. But from that point, we need to have this as a whole, I guess, how business is done in Creswell and have, racial equality and inclusion and all of those things to be part of that language and a part of our daily life. That will include training, that will include many, many different things that I believe that this is only going to be the beginning. So, I encourage you to read through all of these. There is some great information in there. take the time. I would like to move this forward to another work session, and we'll continue this topic. And I believe this is going to be an ongoing topic through the future until we decide on how we want to go and what direction we want to go. But, I really encourage you to get through all of the documents and read through all of them before the next work session, because there's some really, really great information in there. So that's kind of my thought process, in hopes that we can have something, maybe we'll have a policy that we can adopt before the end of the year. I don't know. It's hard to say at this point in time. That would be my desire, but, we'll see how it goes from here. But I believe, we have to have this as a much more wide-arching viewpoint. It just can't be just a document. It just can't be throwing something out there like Michelle introduced this with today. Yes, we could adopt a policy that Lane County did and make it Cresswell's, and what does that do? It doesn't do anything. We have to bring about inclusiveness, and I really relish the fact that we have 2 people of color on our council. I love that. So that's my thought. Michelle, did you want to weigh in on that?
I think you said it quite well, Mayor. I do think it is important to recognize the folks that we have even on our staff who are culturally diverse. And it is very sad to announce that we lost one of our instructors who was a contractor because he did not feel it was safe to live in Cresswell anymore because of his race. And he told me that flat out. He's moving out of what he considers the United States of America because he does not want to face this anymore. And, he has strong roots in this southern Willamette Valley. His family's here, and it's a very scary time for some people. And it's great to hear all of you wanting to make Cresswell a place that's welcome for everyone. It's going to be hard work, and I got to figure out how to get this started. So I could use some assistance from you. Would you like me to bring in an expert to help facilitate this process? Do you feel you want to facilitate this process? Do you want some other tool to get started? I'm willing to do whatever you send me off to do to get this whole project kick-started.
Okay, Councilor Prochu, I believe you had your hand up, sir.
All that unmuting to say, no, I did not have my hand up, or I did not intend to. Sorry.
Okay, Martha?
Thank you, sir. Ross, you might remember 10 or so years ago when Jonas Scott was attacked, or, someone punched him on the trail from 6th Street over to the high school. And Cresswell, for a minute, the city council, is the Rob Handy days. The council was looked at to solve this problem, and really, literally, there was no response, and we couldn't figure out, nobody could verbalize a way to respond to that did not, we had the NAACP here. Folks were very upset with us, and we were so ill-equipped to respond. And it's so exciting now that we're chasing the response in a time when it's very appropriate, when we're not the targets, but we could be leaders in speaking out. So I wonder if we look into the past at some of the people that 10 years ago were yelling at us, and maybe speak with them and say, can you come back and help us with this process, or a facet of it at least? And most folks were in Eugene. I'm sure folks are still around.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Amy, did you have your hand up?
I did. I forgot what I was going to say, though. Oh, I think a part of our leadership, I think, goes back to the whole scandal with Chief Wooten And I do believe we are held to a higher standard, even in our private life. And everything that you say in the media, on social media, on Twitter, on everything is not 100% private. As soon as somebody gets a hold of it, it will be held against you. And I just really want council to understand that, because I know a lot of people talk about their First Amendment rights. And of course you have your First Amendment rights. I'm not saying don't say these things, and I'm not going to bar you, and I can't, but you're going to be held accountable for what you say. And a lot of us use social media. A lot of us get contacted by our local media. I want us to make good decisions as a council. We are held to a higher standard than the rest of our citizens. And if we are moving forward and saying we want all these policies and we want to be inclusive, that means you got to take that to heart, even in your personal life. This isn't just a front. You don't just say this because you're a council member. You say it because you believe it, and then you live it. So that's my spiel.
Thanks, Amy. Councilors, any other comments? Oh, Michelle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, going back to Councilor McReynolds' comment that there are local people who can help with this. I know that Cottage Grove, in response to the Wolf Den moving to Cottage Grove, started a group to discuss this. And I know that they're discussing it currently, I think, right now. And they're using this book. I don't know if I can get it to focus. But I have copies of this book here at City Hall. It's So You Want to Talk About Race. I'm not sure if that's the right book for us, but I know that Cottage Grove is using it with some success. And again, specifically, I think around the white supremacy issue. But I also really think that Council President Knudsen is getting to the heart of the issue, and that is hate, period. Hate and bullying, and how do you treat people in an everyday setting. So that's even another level just than this book covers. So like I said, if we could do a study around a book like what Cottage Grove is doing, we could bring in an outside speaker, we could have a symposium, we could invite people onto YouTube, we could do a YouTube event and have people join us on YouTube and they can ask questions. We could have an expert. Maybe we want to do all of them. I don't know. But I also agree that this is
yes to all.
Yes to all. Okay. Okay. We'll do it.
Councilor Prochu.
Waiting for the unmute. It takes, I don't know why, it takes like 3 seconds to unmute. Anyway, I feel like we're kind of at this precipice of we're wanting to take some action, but we're also wanting to make sure that we take the right action, that we don't just do action to say that we took action. And so I feel like we want to be able to show progress, or that something is moving forward while we're still figuring out what it is that we're going to do. So I would say that from that list that Michelle provided, I think that we ought to take 1 or 2 or something like that and just start doing it. And then as we start to figure out and do those things, I think more ideas are going to come to light. So maybe if we take a book and we say we're going to do a reading thing and we're going to come back to the next work session and share and talk about that, that's at least something that we can say we're doing. And so even if we're taking a little bit more time to do some of the other things like the document or the proclamation or the committee or whatever it is that we're going to do, let's just get something going.
Okay, Councilor Knudsen.
Sorry, I don't mean to hog the time here, but I think the first thing that I would like to see done is to have somebody come host something with us. I like that idea of having a virtual meeting and having some sort of race cultural expert, a professor maybe, I don't know, somebody's got to know something that can come and talk to us about race. We could get that discussion going, and we could have people join on YouTube and they could join in the discussion as well. It would have to be heavily publicized in order to get people to come talk to us. But I think people would be more interested if it was an online format that seems to appeal to our citizens lately. And we could just have an open discussion about it. I would like to hear what citizens are going through. I mean, that story that you told about a contractor leaving, that's insane to me. And I want to hear more stories of that. Yes, I am a woman of color, but I feel like I have never had a problem living in Crestwell in the 5 years that I've been here. But I don't know why that is. But I'm sure there's people of color that live here that have had different experiences, and I want to hear from them. But I also want somebody to come in and poke us a little bit and kind of open our eyes a little bit. So that would be my first.
Oh.
And then the training too. Whatever training you were talking about, I think we could all benefit, staff and council.
Okay, very good. Alonzo or Misty, did I see one of your hands up there? No? Okay, very good. Well, I agree with what I'm hearing. I believe that having an open discussion, I think, is going to be very helpful. And if we can have that as one of our earlier types of motion forward, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, I think that would be good. It would give us some people to listen to, some people that can share concerns, thoughts, experiences. I mean, I am so distraught by hearing that about the contractor that's leaving our country, it sounds like, from what you said, Michelle. And that's just unbelievably, to me, it's just unbelievable. I just can't even hardly understand. But I do think we need to move this topic forward. I believe in hearing from an expert and creating an open dialogue. Then we can start formulating our own thoughts on how we all might like to move forward. And then we can begin the process of whittling down, so to speak, or adding to that discussion. And I believe that's a great idea. And I think, if we can do that in an open discussion and hopefully have an expert here that would be able to moderate, answer some questions, whatever, I think that would be great, because we certainly none of us are experts on this topic by any means. I just know from personal family experiences that this is something that really hits home for me. So if that's what we'd want to do, then let's go ahead and Michelle, if you can work on something between now and work session, and we can discuss this further on our Wednesday morning meeting, and we'll move that forward to our August work session. So unfortunately, this being times that they are, and us not having work sessions now that we've got them started, I'm going to encourage that we continue and not have our normal August break from work sessions. And I think we need to put our noses to the grindstone. This is really important. Okay, all right. Well, that moves us, we'll conclude the topic from there unless there is any final comments from council. All right, seeing none, we will move forward to item 4C, which is the possible property purchase. So this one, do you want to talk about this one, Michelle?
Yes, please. I think we're very fortunate that, well, I should start out by saying an unfortunate event has happened. The owner of the theater has passed away, and her daughter contacted me and asked me if the city would be interested in purchasing the old theater. Hopefully you read, and I have to acknowledge that Maddie helped me tremendously in gathering the information for this item. She was a big help to me. But it's actually a piece of property with a pretty interesting history, as I'm sure some of you who know Crestwellian history are aware. it goes back to very early, before the city was even incorporated, that building. And it's had a couple of uses. I haven't talked to her. When I asked her what she wanted as far as a purchase price, she didn't know. So I said, well, we'll need to get an appraiser to look at it. But as you can see, it's currently assessed at $163,227, which is typically below market value. But some ideas, I think if we don't buy it, somebody else will buy it pretty fast. There's a lot of people who have said, I want to own that building. The nice thing about it is if we own that building, then we own it, a beautiful relic from our past right on Oregon Avenue that we can make a beautiful cornerstone for our community. Not only that, but with the community center going away, this could serve as a municipal auditorium. So that's a pretty nice thing to have. Additionally, with the new work that Maddie has done on the downtown district, we are asking people to consider live-work type housing. And that facility has an apartment. And over the weekend, I drove by and saw that they were removing some of the belongings of the deceased woman. And there's quite a big storage area underneath the apartment. So that would make for a lovely business, work, live possibility. The city could rent that out. If we had it as the auditorium and restored it to being an auditorium, we could also rent out the auditorium for folks who might want to have a music festival or might want to have a film festival or any sort of performance venue. Maybe we could even have some drama club interested in using it. I don't know. I think the stage is probably pretty small, but they'd have to be pretty creative in how they used it. But it does have a lot of space and surprisingly can seat over 300 people, which I found pretty amazing. Now, I don't know if current codes would quite welcome that number in there, but I think there's something to look at. It has an upper balcony as well as the downstairs floor. And yeah, so just was wondering if you wanted me to pursue this and what your thoughts were about purchasing this piece of property.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, councilors, I will open that up to questions. Councilor McReynolds, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Not really a question. I'm an unqualified yes, definitely. If we can get it at a market-ish rate, even if it requires a loan, that's a super special building in town. And I totally agree that we should jump on it if we can.
Okay, Councilor Inman. I'm sorry, Councilor Knudsen. You moved on me.
I'm going to play bad cop with Martha. I say no. I'm not interested in buying another historical building after we just gave away a historical schoolhouse because we couldn't take care of it and we didn't have any money to put towards it. And it sat there for years and years and years and got dilapidated more and more and more. And it was only because the Crestwell Heritage Foundation stepped up and we donated it to them. And now they've put all this work into it and got all these grants and are fixing it up. And that's great. And I think the discussion that we all had was, we're not in the buying, owning property business. That's not really what the city does. I mean, I understand we need community space and we might be losing, well, we will be losing possibly the community center, but we have the Cobalt building and it's a lot. I mean, that just looks like a huge nightmare project that would sit there. I mean, we're asking people to possibly pass a gas tax to help pay for our streets, and then we go and buy a building, an old building. I fully appreciate the history of it, and I hope somebody snatches that up and restores it, but I don't think we're in the buying historic buildings business. If you want to look up a city that went down this road. Coos Bay has the Egyptian Theater, and the owners wanted to sell it in 2005, and it's still sitting there. They co-own it with it's the Coos Bay Urban Renewal Agency, and then a board. And 15 years later, it's not up to code. It's the back end is sinking into the foundation. It's a mess. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to take that on. So
I'm very familiar with the Egyptian Theater. Yeah, it has a very sad history. I mean, it's a beautiful theater. It even has the neon still. But my goodness, it is sinking into the bay at a rapid rate and probably can't be resurrected. So this is not quite the same, but I think your point is well taken. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Castillo, and then I'll go to Councillor McReynolds.
Apologies. First of all, my condolences to Kelly Moran, I believe. And I'm on the same page as Amy. At this, I would say we have to pass. Because I did just a visual walk around of the building, and it to me, in my unprofessional opinion, it is a bad investment all the way around. That building is what, 100 years old? So I mean, who do asbestos, lead? I mean, it's going to be a money pit. We have to pass, I believe. I just don't see this panning out, and to take a loan out, you know, and then who pays that loan back? Where do those monies come from? Well, I believe it's going to come from the people of Cresswell, right? And yes, we are trying to fix our streets. To take on a project such as this, I don't think we have any business doing this. And that's my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Alonzo. Appreciate that. Martha?
All right, 2 points. Amy, good job with the bad cop. I rely on you for that. The schoolhouse had no plumbing and it was falling apart. I think the bones inside this old building had the same occupancy. The nice lady didn't touch anything. There's not decades of remodel. It was probably built before asbestos was really used a lot in buildings, actually. So it might be worth a soft pass to at least let Michelle look into it for 10 minutes and get a look-see. But yeah, you're totally right. Y'all are a bunch of buzzkills, and this is why we have a council and it's a whole bunch of folks voting. So people like me that would like to collect cool properties don't have the purse or the power. So thank you all.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, pretty funny. You should go on stage as a comedian or something. All right, so we have not heard from Councillor Inman or Councillor Prochu yet. Councillor Inman.
Although I think it's a nice idea to have that space. I agree that that wouldn't be something that we should invest in. However, I wonder if there would be a possibility that the Cresswell Historical Foundation would be of interest.
They don't have any money.
Okay, because that's where I would really see it kind of under, and it would be great to have somebody buy it and restore it. That would be a cool feature of Cresswell. So.
All right. Councillor Prochu?
Hi. Yeah, I will weigh in a little bit. I definitely see all the pros and cons that were mentioned today. So I would say that maybe one of the things that we could do is I don't mind just investing a little bit of time into understanding the property a little bit more, and maybe how we could even use and rent it out as a way to help pay for some of the purchase price. So it's one thing, you know, to kind of consider is that it might be an investment that could pay for itself if we do it properly, but we would need to have a plan. and understand how that works. The other kind of flip side to that is that I was a little bit concerned about losing the community center. And then I know that some of the space over there at the Cobalt was also in use, but I think that if I read correctly, that Vincent Rubio is no longer in that space there. So that kind of opens that back up again, I think. Is that, anyway, just more considerations. I would probably want more information before I said one way or the other on this.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Okay, any further comments from council before I weigh in? Okay, well, Michelle asked, just a moment.
I'm sorry, just one, please.
Go ahead.
We're not really swimming in old historical buildings, so that would leverage a little more positivity around the city owning, for me, the theater. We don't have very many, historical old Crestwell stuff.
All right, thanks, Martha. I kind of feel the same way that Martha does in the respect that I don't think it would be hurtful to investigate a little further. I'd hate to turn down something just because we turned it down. Granted it's going to be, I did a walk around this weekend as well, and yeah, it does look like it's going to need sufficient amount of money to, just on the exterior alone is going to be needing a lot of money. I would love to investigate a little bit further, but in hearing from council, in taking Councilor Prochu's response as a possible yes, and myself and Martha and the other three councilors considering no. So going back to our council rules, that if something comes to council and it goes to a split decision, then that fails. So in this regard, using our council rules as they are properly to be designed to do, we have to consider this as a council consensus is going to say no at this time. I would love to have had Councilor Drago here tonight to cast a deciding decision on our consensus, but it is what it is. We have to live by our council rules, and that's the way I would define them. So if anybody has a comment about that, I'd be more than welcome. So, Councilor Prochu? We can't hear you, sir.
Any vote that fails on the council can come back before the council again, right? We can do it again if we wanted to reconsider that.
Not for quite some time, and it may be sold by then. She came to us first. Like I said, there's plenty of people who want to buy it. My concern is it's right on Oregon Avenue, and we don't know what it will become. Think about that. Think about who might buy that. Yeah. Not that I'm trying to say anything, but I mean, if we don't pursue it, we lose control of it. And that is a stage, and that is a environment that could become something that wasn't the best for our downtown area. And we would have no control over that. So just something to consider.
Councilor McReynolds.
Thank you. Michelle, are you talking about a strip club or what? Something worse than an automatic weapons store next door to City Hall? I think we tolerate that really well. I mean,
think about the revenue stream. We've been wanting to get some revenue stream going in our downtown, and it's an empty building. Boom, right there, problem solved.
Councilor Castillo.
I just want to mention that I have had quite some experience working on buildings that are 40 years old, 50 years. Once you start peeling back those layers on that building, good luck to whoever purchases that building. This is all I'm going to say.
It might be worthwhile just to get an appraisal on it.
Councilors,
how much is that going to cost?
Some money.
Yeah. There goes the money pit starting. Believe me, I bought a 1970s home that I'm still renovating. Money pits are no fun.
Yeah. So has that swayed any changes in opinion to anyone?
You've been warned.
All right, well, hearing none, I will go ahead and say that the council rules will apply, and as a tie in our consensus, we will drop this subject for this point in time. So unfortunately, it will likely not come back. As Michelle said, it will probably likely be sold before too long, but we had the opportunity and we were given the chance. And not to say that we're neither side is right or wrong. We don't know. There's some certain uncertainty there. That's a really weird phrase, but it is what it is, and we have to recognize that we are bound by some limitations, and we are bound to serve the Cresswell as a better community and by everyone, and that is what it is. So. Anyway, that is the evening for tonight and concludes our agenda. Councilor Castilla, I would like to pass along my sincere hopes that your father recovers really well and does not go to any further members of your family. So my best wishes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. All right, so we will call the meeting adjourned, and thank you.